Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we got ourselves a bit of a free agency preview. By the time you hear us next, Justin, the Giants will have new players. How are you doing?
Oh, that means I get to say one of my favorite lines. Bobby Skinner, hopefully by the time that you and I talk next, hopefully the New York Football Giants will be a better football team. I hope,
unless it's like, we get Mark Lewinsky, John Feliciano, and Tyrod Taylor, who doesn't play that entire season. I don't think it's going to be one of those free agencies, Justin. But a lot of guys, we'll kind of go off what we're wanting out of free agency and not necessarily just, these are the 10 guys I want the Giants to go and get. But we have to start with Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley. But before we start with that, Justin, some special people brought us this episode. Aiden Nolan. I like that name. Oh, Nolan. Rolling. MD Kirsch. That's a weird name, I'll be honest. Don't love if your name is just MD Kirsch. We got Kate with no last name. Is it Kate Upton? People are saying. Daniel Lickery. He is the Lickery. And Gavin Graber or Grabber. He's grabbing the grape. And then, and I forgot another family tier member.
Whoa.
Griffin Nesfield. Which I'm starting to get uncomfortable with all these family tier members. Justin, who are these people? Thank you very much, Griffin.
yes, thank you, Griffin.
And all of them,
And all of you. Griffin, Nesfield, Westfield, and MD These Nuts. Patreon.com/TalkOfGiants. $2 a month plus some other tiers. Get to hang out with us live while we record the shows. You know the drill. Bobby will send you some stickers in the mail. As well, there's some shirt raffles a couple times a month. Patreon.com/TalkOfGiants.
All right, Justin, the Giants decided to not tag Saquon Barkley or Xavier McKinney. We basically knew this would not happen with Saquon Barkley. But Xavier McKinney, the transition tag was thrown out there. It was reported, before that there's a good chance they'll use it. But I guess it basically turned out to be a threat, an empty threat by Joe Shane to try and get Xavier McKinney to sign on the dotted line before 4 o'clock on Monday or Tuesday. A lot of the commentary on this will have to wait and see how free agency plays out next week. Does Xavier McKinney stay? I hope so. What do they do in free agency? Like, are they going to go pay a Donnell Hunter, right? Which obviously can change something. Like, are they going to pay a premium player at a premium position? We've talked about it exhaustively, why I think Xavier McKinney should be back. He's 24. He's extremely versatile. He's a very good cover safety, plays the run really well. He had the best safety missed tackle rate in the NFL, which I feel like people point at him like, he missed tackles. Well, he had the best missed tackle rate in the NFL for safeties this past year. He's a very good player already. He's ascending. He'd be an important piece for Shane Bowen's defense. I think the Giants should work next week to bring Xavier McKinney back once he sees what the market is.
Yeah, Bobby, I'm with you. And I really don't have a lot of strong takes about the Giants heading into free agency this year, outside of bringing Xavier McKinney back. Now, here's this. I want to ask this quick. Do you feel like the influx of safeties changes your mind on either bringing Xavier McKinney back, and B, do you think it gets a little bit more difficult or easier to bring McKinney back since this free agent market for safeties and running backs, safeties is really, really strong right now?
Well, I think we're in a land of I don't know right now. And the I don't knows is, how is free agency going to look after the inflation of the total salary cap? 1. 2, yes, there's this inflection of safeties, Justin, but they're essentially all over 30 years old. And out of the young ones, Xavier McKinney's the best. And hey, could they get a good safety for cheap that won the 30-year-olds? Sure, but I want Xavier McKinney here for the long run, not as a stopgap, right? And those are what those players would be. I think he's part of the long-term future on a team that doesn't really have anybody signed through 2025, right? It's basically just, Thomas, Dex, and Okereke. Waller's not going to be here. Jones isn't going to be here. And then the last year's draft class. So I think this team is depleted of good players, and they need good players. And McKinney's one that he should be here, not only for the next 2 years, but hopefully the next 4 or 5 years. Good young players. So we'll see. I don't want this team to be built through free agency, though.
No.
Right? So it's like, yes, do they open up? If they don't pay him, is that a big contract they could give out? But the big contracts usually don't, sustain the way the re-signing of the good young drafted player do.
Right.
Does.
And I think that's important, right? A lot of these guys are hitting free agency either for a reason or also, like you said, it just doesn't seem to work out when you go out and give the guy in free agency a big contract. At least it doesn't work out for the Giants, that is. And I feel a lot more comfortable paying the in-house talent than the talent elsewhere. And also,
and you can't go out there like you get Bobby Okerekes, the Blake Martinez, James Bradberys and stuff.
But
those
not
moves
big game
don't stop
hunting.
you from
Right.
signing Xavier McKinney as well.
Also, Bobby Okereke, Blake Martinez, and even James, like those moves aren't big game hunting. Like, and I'm talking big game hunting. Like we've heard Donnell Hunter being floated around. I think that's big game hunting. That I don't know if the Giants should be.
Kenny Golladay is big game hunting.
Yes, 100%. And I heard Dan Duggan, just talking about it. Research Rick has pointed at it too. We're really reflecting today about Giants free agency. The Giants dug their grave with the Daniel Jones contract, and they're lying in this $47.1 million cap number this year. They can't touch it, right? The ideally with the Giants last year is that Daniel Jones was good, and then you were able to push money down the line, right? Oh, because we believe in Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is good. He's the quarterback of the future. We want to continue to invest around him. That's not the case right now. The conversation right now is how can the Giants replace Daniel Jones, not how can the Giants build around Daniel Jones. So this is a very, very interesting, obviously offseason, but this is going to be a very interesting week for Joe Schoen in terms of how does he want to approach this team right now in his regime. Does he want to backload contracts? Because if you go out and you sign a Donnell Hunter, it's going to have to be backloaded, right? I think McKinney signing him in-house.
Heavily backloaded too.
If you sign McKinney, there's going to be flexibility with that. Do you touch the contracts of Andrew Thomas? Do you touch the contracts of Dexter Lawrence if you want to make certain moves? So I don't know the last time that I've been so lukewarm on a Giants free agency, Bobby, where McKinney's the priority, and that's somebody that's in-house. And then outside of getting interior offensive linemen, I really don't have a strong inclination on I'm pounding my fist on the table being like, the Giants need to bring in this, the Giants need to bring in that. I really don't have strong takes on it just because.
Well, it's basically they have to get out of it with interior offensive line. That is the one thing that we know that they have to do, but that doesn't stop you from bringing back Xavier McKinney. I would love to know what the ballpark of what Xavier McKinney was offered. We have no clue what that is. Like the Giants and McKinney's side have done a good job of keeping that tight-lipped. That we have no clue of what they offered him.
And he went on, up at Adams, the Kay Adams show today, and it sounds like there's not going to be a deal that's reached before Monday. Him and Barkley are hitting the open market.
Yeah, Barkley, we know for sure. Like they didn't even offer him a new contract. They said, go test the market. McKinney, they did offer McKinney something. We just don't know what it was.
Right.
So I want to keep Xavier McKinney. I don't want to, spend half the money on a above average safety. I want to keep Xavier McKinney.
But
the other young guys are Cam Curl, who's a good player, but he's not the player that McKinney is. He's more of a box guy. He hasn't had an interception since his rookie year. And then Geno Stone, who played really well, but he has a third safety behind two all-pro safeties and two all-pro linebackers and a great pass rush. Like, I'm not expecting Geno Stone to replicate what he did in 2023.
Bobby, this may be the first time in Talking Giants history where we're saying the first priority of free agency is bringing back somebody of our own.
Well, last year was the first time we brought back someone of our own since Sterling Shepard. So, the Giants haven't been in this situation to keep good players.
Right.
Because they haven't had good players to keep. And now that they do, I would like to keep them. Especially, again, this is not the same situation as Landon Collins, where Landon Collins was a limited player, and he got way overpaid. McKinney's not a limited player, and I think he's going to get even better after already being really good. So I really want to keep McKinney on this team. And the thing that would stop me from saying, okay, the Giants, I understand it, is if he's like, I'm not taking anything less than $18 million per year. Right? If that's the boat that they're in, but you still had the transition tag in your back pocket. And I think the Giants, you saw the Patriots do it with Kyle Duggar. I think the Giants would have been able to either play him on that 14 mil tag, which is right around the number that me and you would really like to sign him at, and then, or that you get a deal done, which I don't think was off the table. So, but do you think Xavier McKinney's back? Yes or no?
I do.
I'm going to say I don't.
Well,
I just feel like a deal should have gotten done, but we'll see. We'll see. We don't know what the contract offer was, so it's hard to gauge what it is. Where last year with Jones and Barkley, we had better understandings of what both sides were at least starting offers with. Now we have no clue with this. With Saquon Barkley, we've done this a lot too, right? The tag would have been $12.1 million. He's 27. Like we did the pending free agent episode. He's going to test the open market, and we'll see if he comes back with an offer the Giants are willing to match. But I have a hard time believing these two times. Like even though all the signs point to them splitting, Justin, I'm just in a point where I'm not going to see these sides are quitting each other until they officially do it.
Yeah, and I do think there will be a team a la the Houston Texans, Baltimore Ravens, Los Angeles Chargers. I do think there will be a team that will offer more than $10 million a year.
Yeah, me too. I think he ends up with the Texans, if I'm being honest. But
yeah,
but it's just these two sides, man. They truly love each other and they can't quit each other.
Like Saquon Barkley would take less money to play for the Giants. I fully believe that. 100%.
It wouldn't have to be much. It'd have to be by a little.
Do you think the difference between $8 million and $11 million per year?
I think he's signing the $11 million. Not even thinking about it.
Okay.
I think he takes back the $11 million to the Giants, and if they offer $8 million, said, "Okay, welcome to the Houston Texans, Saquon Barkley." That's a huge gap to bridge right there.
Well, it's a huge, and I'm serious when I say this. It's a huge gap right now in the year 2024, but if you play your career in New York City, then the opportunities for you in media and the opportunities for you to basically just be a New York figure, that opportunities are in this. So the $3 million now could mean $30 million down the road for you to be a figure in New York. And that's what I know he cares about. I know he cares about his post-play, and as he should, his post-playing career, seeing these guys a la Victor Cruz and a la, other guys that have worked, kind of in Giants media. But Victor Cruz isn't even in Giants media. He's kind of just like a figure in New York because he stayed in New York. And I know Saquon Barkley cares about that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the difference is that's $6 million that no one's passing that up.
Right. I agree with you.
Unless it's to stay on a Super Bowl contending team. Which
I agree with you.
He'd be in a better situation with Houston.
But I just wanted to throw out that caveat.
So we'll see with those two guys. Let's get into the free agency part of this, the bringing in new player spot, Justin. Before that, let's talk to the people about something.
I'll talk to you about something. And oh boy, it's a new podcast and video series. I think we talked about it last week. You're not going to want to miss, and it's The Deal, co-hosted by Yankees legend Alex Rodriguez. Some call him A-Rod. Every week, A-Rod and Bloomberg reporter Jason Kelly, that's a good media name, speak with big-time athletes, entertainers, and executives like Maria Sharapova, Michael
I have a question.
Strahan.
Do you know who Maria Sharapova is? One of the comments made it. It didn't seem like you did last week.
No, I did not, because I probably said her name wrong, but I said it right this week.
Do you know who she is?
No.
She's one of the best women's tennis players of all time.
Wow. You learn something new every day on
Get your
Talking
tennis
Giants.
game up. I know there's some tennis listeners on the podcast. Go check it out.
I like that Carlos Alcatraz guy. His last name is not Alcatraz. Michael Strahan, Derek Jeter, and more. They're talking to Derek Jeter. The Deal takes you behind the scenes into the world of sports, media, and entertainment, and dives into the wins, losses, and lessons learned along the way. From Bloomberg Podcasts and Bloomberg Originals, you can listen to The Deal on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bobby Skinner, you'll be glad you did.
Bloomberg, you'll be glad you did. Free agency, Justin. The Giants currently have $38.2 million in cap space with the Mark Lewinsky cut. The position we got to start with is a position that the Giants flat out have to come out of this free agency with, and that is guard. And not only that, Justin, I think they need to come out with one of like the top, like they got to be paying someone close to $10 million per year type of guard, right? I don't know who that's going to be. If they go big game hunting and get Michael Onwenu, I don't know. But they have to get a guard. Jonah Jackson's the name that's out there. I did a little speed watch of him, Justin. He's strong, right? Like he can move guys in the run game. He doesn't move laterally the way I would like as a pass blocker. So he's nothing special there, but he's not horrible either. That's the name that's out there. That's the one where it can be the reasonable $8-9 million per year, maybe $10 million per year, and would, immediately come in and start next to Andrew Thomas, most likely at left guard after being with the Detroit Lions.
Would you be, I don't want to put you in a box, but would you be thrilled? Would you be happy? Do you think he would fit? What's your thoughts on him so far?
So I did a speed watch. He's a good player. Like he's obviously like a lot better than what the Giants have had. And I asked our Lions friend about him. He said, good player, injury prone, and that will keep Price under where I think his quality of play should be, right? He's always missed games the last couple of years. That worries me. Good athlete, can get outside and run. Ben Johnson used him in a similar way as Penei with a lot of pulls to the left to get guys outside in space. I don't think he's better than Onwenu, but probably similar to Dotson at the top of the guard market. It doesn't seem like he's coming back. He's unhappy about not getting extended for sure.
Right on. Yeah,
and I trust that guy. And I did a speed watch, and you see the strength pop up, right? Like when we talk about Mark Lewinsky as a good run defender, it's about how he moves. Jonah Jackson can move cats, right? Like he gets that right hand on you, and when he extends, he displaces defensive linemen. So obviously, we don't do a ton of film evaluation on these guys before free agency because it'd just be never ending, and we focus our film evaluation on the draft and just do film eval on free agents after the Giants sign him. But I'm watching him. I watched the speed run through of him versus the Chiefs in Week 1, and I'm like, that's a player I would like to sign.
Are you also? Part of me also expects a swing tackle to come in here too.
Yeah, so, but let's stick with guard for a second.
Let's stick with him.
Is they got to sign one of those guys, right? I think they've got to sign one more too. Even if he's like, they're eyeing guard in the draft and they want the guy in the draft to come start, they have to get a starting caliber player back. I think Ben Bredesen should be brought back as well. They have to come out of free agency with multiple players at the guard position because they cannot live with having one player and then it's Josh Azudu and Marcus McKeithen going into the draft. They can't do that. They've got to have bodies there, right? Like Ben Bredesen at the minimum with another, higher paid guard.
Robert Hunt from Miami is pretty good. Josh Simpson, I believe he's from the Ravens. Is pretty good.
Kevin Dodson with the Rams played really well last year after the Steelers traded him.
Mitch Morse, I believe he's a center, right? Mitch Morse.
Yeah, he's only played center in the
only
NFL.
Center. Kevin Dotson's another guy that's listed. So yeah, I think doesn't Connor Williams have center guard versatility too?
Yeah, he plays guard. I know he's the king of the holding penalties. I don't think Miami people are super thrilled with him, hence letting him walk.
He tore his ACL late in the 2023 season. Never mind. Connor Williams.
So I wouldn't want to touch that.
Kevin Zeitler?
Huh?
Kevin Zeitler?
Yeah, he's not coming back. And then with offensive tackle, like you said, they do have to bring in a swing player. The guy that obviously sticks out for Giants is Jermaine Eluemunor from the Raiders. Right now, he played under Carmen Brasil, the Giants O-line coach. What could be a good or a bad thing, right? There's, Raiders players didn't necessarily love Carmen Brasil, even though that offensive line performed well. Josh Jones from the Texans, who came out from the Thomas draft and played for Houston this past year, after being drafted by the Cardinals. Swing tackle is one of the toughest positions to talk about, Justin, because a good swing tackle is not a good tackle.
Right.
But they have to get one, right? They have to get some type of playable, level there. I'm not trusting Tyree Phillips to be back at full health. And, Tyree Phillips was playing better than Evan Neal, but I don't think he was necessarily playing very good. I don't want that level of play in my right tackle. But at the end of the day, Evan Neal is going to get the first crack at right tackle, but there has to be a backup plan. So I would love to bring in Jermaine Elamino from the Raiders. He played well for them this past couple of years.
And that would be a swing tackle move? He started for
I guess. Would he not be?
I mean, he's logged almost 1,000 snaps over the last 2 years. So, if you're gonna sign that guy, all right, we're gonna sign a starter in the NFL at tackle. We're gonna sign him to be the backup right away. I just don't know if they would do that.
Well, you've got Tyron Smith, Charles Leno. He's not very good. Trent Brown's a free agent. Maybe Cam Fleming would come back.
Like that. I'm thinking like of a Cam Fleming type of player that is worse. That's what I'm thinking. That would be cheaper.
Yeah, I know, but I pointed him out because he would be the best of them, and there is a connection with the Giants' offensive line. So that's the name that points out to you. Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to get a starter contract for someone to start for them, but it would be really nice to have him as a depth. He's not some great tackle either.
Yeah.
There's good tackles don't hit free agency.
This is a mess, man.
The offensive line is really bad.
This is a fucking mess.
You have Andrew Thomas, who's great. You hoping John Michael Smith takes a year to jump. And then outside of that, you've got three bad players. You have Evan Neal, Josh Azudu, and Marcus McKeithen. Three bad players, which, Evan Neal should get first crack at in camp, but you have to have that backup plan. You've got to spend money on guard. I think you've got to attack it in the draft too. And again, you need depth too, right? You can't just be like, okay, well, we fill out the starting five. Now Josh Azudu is our first backup, and Tyree Phillips is our first backup tackle. Like that's a bad plan, especially if you're getting Jonah Jackson, who's missed games the last couple of years too.
It's year 3, and it barely feels like you got anything figured out. Sucks, man.
What position you want to hit next?
Where do you want to go? Let's go to edge rusher, because I think if there's actually one thing that Shane Bowen, the big difference between Shane Bowen and Wink Martindale is the edge depth will add better edge depth this year. Like a Jihad Ward type player being your edge rusher number 2 will not happen in this scheme.
Yeah. And if they want to improve at edge, it's going to have to happen through free agency, because I just don't see it happening in the draft.
It's a very top-heavy position, right?
Yeah, like you have Dallas Turner. The Giants aren't going to get him. Laitu Latu, Jared Verse from FSU. Adisa Isaac from Penn State has been thrown out there as a second, third round guy, and I don't see it with him. I know the Giants are going to have a visit with him, and maybe a local visit because he's from Brooklyn. And went to Penn State, so I don't know if it'll count as a top 30. But I don't think you're going to get an impact player in rounds 2 and 3 at the edge spot, and that honestly holds up for the most part in the NFL draft anyway. The best edge talent usually comes from the first round, with the exceptions.
Correction, Kevin Dotson. Not a correction, I guess, just an update from 11 minutes ago when we're recording this. Kevin Dotson, 3-year deal worth $48 million. That's a lot of money for the Los Angeles Rams.
$16 million per year.
Yep. That's $16 million a year.
That is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
All right, well, get ready to spend some money on guard, because it's going to cost the Giants. And they have to. They cannot come out of free agency without a guard. With the edge, that is where, if you can see the Giants going big game hunting, you can see it, right? Danielle Hunter, he's 29. He's a beast. You have the guy who molded him on staff with Andre Patterson. He had 16 and a half sacks last year, 22 tackles for loss. I mean, he is someone who just gets after the pass rusher, down in, down out. He's a good run defender, causing, chaos. He's a really good player, and he is a type of player who can help change a defense. And I know he's 29, but I do think he has a lot of, I think he'll live out the contract that the Giants would have to give him, which is 4 years, whatever. Right? That is That is if you're not bringing back Xavier McKinney, that is the type of move that they have to be eyeing. It's like, okay, we're getting a guy who's, again, a similar level of player, I think a higher level player of Xavier McKinney at a more important position, and we have to go get guard.
He's played every game of a 16-17 game eligible season of the last 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 out of the last 6 seasons he's played in every single game. Last 2 years he's had 22 QB hits, and the last 2 years he's cleared over 10 sacks. 10.5 sacks 2022, 16.5 sacks in 2023. 23 tackles for loss this year too. Holy smokes. So
yeah, he gets after. He's a really good player at obviously a premium position as pass rusher. I think it would help Kayvon too, is not getting the either running back help or tight end help. It would. If Kayvon could take a step forward, it could put together a nice little pass rush duo for the Giants. And then Bryce Huff from the Jets has been the name that's been floated out there, right? A guy who's more of a pass rush specialist, even though I think he can get better as a run defender. Pass rush metrics are insane, right? It is Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, and then Bryce Huff and pass rush win rate and, pass rush production. Though he gets after the pass rusher on an extremely efficient basis, he is someone who would help right away, immediately. And again, another guy. I don't know what he's going to get though, Justin, because it's a position that doesn't hit free agency for the most part. He has really good numbers. He put up 10 sacks, but he put up 10 sacks as a backup on the Jets.
Right.
Like he was not a starter for the Jets, yet was able to put up double-digit sacks, and he wasn't a sack merchant. He had the amazing metrics.
Yeah, Bryce Huff is going to be really interesting. Will teams pay him just because he's young and he's going to be 26 at the start of next year? Or are they going to pay him? There's been some guys as NFL free agency over the last couple of years with Edge. You either really get paid, or some NFL teams are going to, to quote Bobby Skinner, they're going to put their flag in the sand and they're like, we're not going to pay you. And then they take like these 1 or 2 year deals and they just float around like a la the Hassan Reddicks of the world, just taking a bunch of 1 to 2 year deals and floating around with a bunch of different teams. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And
he could be in a very similar role to Hassan Reddick, right? Where he had that good production the last year in Arizona after the position switch. And it's like, okay, we want to see you do it. We want to see you match that again. And he could be in that position. But I also see a guy who's a backup and think he might be more willing to just take the biggest long-term offer he can get and get that security.
Yeah, 100%.
And there's going to be some type of big offer hit to him. The guys that haven't have been the guys, like you said, holding out to, I want top 5 at the position, which Bryce Huff isn't going to get that. And he shouldn't hold out for that because I think he can set himself up with some nice money and a long-term deal in this free agency. So next position, let's talk about quarterback because this is a position that Joe Shane has said they're going to get. He said it. We're going to get a quarter. We got it. We're after addressing in free agency. If you had the pick of the litter for the quarterbacks that are available and thinking of what their contracts might be, who would you pick? And I want to see if we pick the same guy.
I think we did. Jacoby Brissett.
No, I think Brissett is going to go somewhere that allows him to be a bridge starter or compete for a starting job. To me, it's Gardner Minshew. He signed for $3.5 million last year, had a solid season, winning record. I think Gardner Minshew would be the best fit for the Giants as someone who can start games but is a backup.
I really don't like Gardner Minshew as a quarterback. I think Anthony Richardson showed that he was better than Gardner Minshew last year. I know they won games.
Anthony Richardson was taken top 5 in the NFL draft.
Well, I agree, but Anthony Richardson was also seen as a prospect that's raw and he needs to develop and he needs time and blah, 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 blah. But
Anthony Richardson played a few games, had some flashes throwing the ball to the same spot on the right side of the field in his first. I mean, but here's the difference. Brissett got $8 million off 1 year last year, and Gardner Minshew got $3.5 million.
Yeah, and Minshew's gonna versus like Tyrod Taylor. Minshew's gonna play. He's gonna play. That's if he gets in, he's gonna play.
Tyrod Taylor would be the easy pick, but he's injured and he's getting older, which means he's 35. Probably gonna get more injured, right? Drew Lock could be someone if they don't, if they're going after like the top, backup type of quarterbacks. I'm not bringing in Russ. I don't
No.
care if it's the minimum. I'm not bringing in Russell Wilson. Ryan Tannehill would have been a perfect one 2 years ago. He's washed now. His arm's done. Although I would like to bring in Russell Wilson just to say Giants country, let's ride all over and over again. I would say let's ride a million times if Russell Wilson came to the Giants. But they are coming out, like when you go look at the quarterback free agent list and figure out which one, because the Giants are bringing one in. They will have another quarterback on the roster 2-3 weeks from now, or 2 weeks from now, because they said that they're going to do it, which I know this isn't the topic, but it makes me even more nuts. We got to see what we have in Tommy DeVito fucking conversation.
Are you relieved that they didn't sign Mitchell Trubisky?
Oh, yes. I did not want Mitchell Trubisky. I can't stand Mitchell Trubisky. He's a vet minimum player in the NFL, and that's simply just because he can throw a football. He can move around a little bit. I don't understand why Buffalo wanted him back so much. He threw 4 passes for them, and one was an ugly interception, and then went to Pittsburgh and stunk. Ended up being their quarterback 3.
And Mason Rudolph outplayed him.
Very relieved. So for the second time in 3 free agencies, I'm very relieved that someone else signed Mitchell Trubisky.
I'm with you. Right there with you.
Other quarterback names pop out to you?
No, none that I see that like stick out. Like if Jacoby Brissett gets money, if Jacoby, they may have to spend a little money. I don't know.
I feel like Brissett's going back to New England.
It could fit, right? Could see it.
I mean, what's the upside for a Brissett because Brissett's going to get a decent contract offer.
Yeah.
What is the upside for Brissett picking the Giants over the Patriots? Daniel Jones is going to be ready for training camp, and they might take someone in the draft too.
But if the Patriots take somebody in the draft, they may not start.
The Patriots are going to take someone in the draft, and I can see the Patriots starting Brissett to start the season.
Yeah.
Like, I'm convinced the Patriots would start somebody else ahead of whoever they draft at pick 3. If they pick someone at pick 3, hope they don't.
Yeah. Along with my doom and gloom thought of 15 minutes ago, the Giants are not a good situation for anybody.
I think it would be a good fit for Gardner Minshew with his playing style, come in and play with Brian Dable.
But ideally, I would like a little bit better than Gardner Minshew. But
well, I mean, Brissett's the only one that's out there that's better.
Right.
Tyrod Taylor might be, but he's injury prone and much older. There's nobody else that's out there that's better. I would take him over Russell Wilson. I would take him over Ryan Tannehill. And then there's no one out there, but they do have to address this backup QB position. A position that they could be looking for a starter in that hasn't been talked about is running back. Now, there's a lot of the top names at running back. Devin Singletary, it seems like, if you ask me to predict one player that the Giants will sign at running back, I mean, Joe Shane was part of drafting him, right? Brian Dable had him as a starting running back in his offense. He had 800-plus yards in the last 3 seasons. He's had a better yards per carry than Saquon in all of those seasons, too. And he signed for $2.7 million last year, and I don't see why that market would be any bigger for him this year. If the Giants should bring in a vet running back, I think Singletary would be the nice option for that.
he ran hard last year. I actually was giving him some flack, and he had a pretty good rushing yards over expected too at 0.15. He was running hard last year. I was giving him some flack during our playoff stream, being like, I don't really think he's that finished. I don't really think he's that good just because he's always been kind of mid at Buffalo. But
well, he's not great, but I think he's a good serviceable piece until you find someone in the draft that can be a really good back for you. Like he's not like great, but he's a serviceable back.
No, but he ran hard, and he played much better in that playoff game than I really thought that he had. It's like, oh, I didn't know you had that dog in you. I didn't know you had that game in you. So yeah, Devin Singletary certainly an option.
How about Boston Scott?
Nope.
Is there any other running backs that pop out to you? I know you got Pollard, Josh Jacobs, like the top guys out there. Obviously, the Giants won't be going those routes. If they're going to do that, they should just bring Saquon Barkley back. But like, is there any other person who's like, I'm comfortable letting him be the starting running back week 1?
I'm sure there's nobody that like sticks out right now.
Yeah, it's kind of, again, you have the top guys, right? So you have the Austin Eckler, Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. And then after that, it's Gus Edwards, Alexander Madison, who was a starter last year. If you wanted to take a swing and hope Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a better player. Deontay Foreman, I think the Giants may have been on Deontay Foreman in the past. That could be one. But outside of that, there's really no other starting level running backs out there. And even those guys are stretching it a bit. Wide receiver, Justin. This is a position I do not want the Giants to spend more than a little. If they're spending on wide receiver, it needs to be for fourth, fifth guy on the depth chart. Now, you have Calvin Ridley out there, who is one of the better free agent wide receivers to hit the open market in a while. That being said, you've got a bunch of wide receiver twos, and then I think Calvin Ridley should be a wide receiver two, even though he does have wide receiver one ability, right? And I went and looked at it because I'm not the biggest Calvin Ridley fan, and I went through all the wide receivers in the NFL and where would I rank Calvin Ridley? He would be my number 26 wide receiver. And if the Giants are spending money, they're going to need to get guard. We would, like them to, address tackle, maybe get a pass rusher. Wide receiver is not a position the Giants should be spending on a free agency. You've got some decent pieces with Slayton, Wandale, and Hyatt, and even Hodgins if they keep him on the exclusive rights free agent. And the Giants could very well be taking one in the first or second round. I don't want this room flooded with a free agent, early draft pick, Darius Slayton, Wandale Robinson, and Jalen Hyatt. I don't want the Giants spending money on wide receiver.
Yeah,
especially not big money.
Yeah, maybe a slot guy, a backup slot guy in here.
Yeah. Get a backup slot guy. But as a starting level player, I don't want anybody in this free agent. I don't care that they drafted Gabe Davis. I don't care that Gabe Davis is very productive in the NFL. He's a wide receiver two. The Giants do not have a wide receiver two need. They have a wide receiver one need, and I'm not filling that with Gabe Davis.
Braxton Berrios.
Yeah, I would love Braxton Berrios as a backup slot, but even him, I think Miami would like him back. He had a good year for them. I've been putting Braxton Berrios on our Giants free agency preview since 2020. But those are the guys I want. Maybe that guy can be a returner as well, even though we still have Gunnar Olszewski.
Yeah. I'm looking at Ray McLeod. No, yeah. I'm looking at the rest of these guys. Laviska Shenault.
No.
Trent Sherfield, former Bill.
That could be a good backup slot for the Giants, right?
That's
Trent Sherfield. Why don't you hit the next position and lead it off?
Trent Sherfield is going to be a Giant. He's age 28, 6'1", 205. Oh, yeah. He's going to be a Giant. 6 accrued seasons. Welcome to the Giants, Trent. Talked about tackle. Talked about interior line, running back, wide receiver. Let's talk tight end.
Is there anyone you want out there? I know we're dealing with this Darren Waller stuff, but it's not a position I want to spend money on in free agency.
Right. And
it is my position that could not be very good, but I'm also not in any rush to get it better. I just want guys that can block.
Right. Well, and I don't think a lot of people are talking, Darren Waller, he spoke with Dan Duggan, and I saw some people getting mad about, Darren Waller's not going to make his decision to retire or whether he'll be back or not by Monday free agency. I don't really think the tight end position and what the Giants should do in free agency, I don't really think it's impending on Darren Waller's decision. I think they should be making a move to sign a backup tight end that could block regardless of whether they have Darren Waller or they don't have Darren Waller, correct?
We've been calling it for it since training camp last year.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not mad at Darren Waller for not making his decision because it's going to change what the Giants have to do. No, I do think that they should go in and they should get. I'm trying here. Let's try and find a name.
They shouldn't have changed anything in the draft either.
No,
because even if Waller stays, he's got essentially one more year. If you have a tight end that you want to draft him because Waller is going to be gone in a year.
Yeah, Austin Hooper. I think they should be adding a backup name like that. Maybe that's even a little too rich. A backup name like that, regardless. And I would be cool with a 2 blocking tight end if Darren Waller does decide to hang it up. I'm okay with walking into this year, with Daniel Bellinger as tight end 1, and then you have another guy that's tight end 2 that's maybe of the same quality as him. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, get just whoever it is he needs to block. Also, fullback, they're going to sign Jakob Johnson, who was with Carmen Brasillo and the Patriots, and then with the Raiders. He did a film clinic on, the run game with the fullback and used him as the example. So Jakob Johnson is going to be a New York Giant at fullback. Defensive tackle, Justin, is a position of need for the Giants, despite the fact they have Dexter Lawrence. A'Shawn Robinson is not is a free agent. A'Shawn is kind of the youngest of the reasonably priced guys, right? Like Christian Wilkins is obviously a beast, but he might get close to 25 average annual value, if not more. A'Shawn will be 29, despite the fact that his face looks like he's 45. And then the other guys are older, like Daquan Jones, who played amazing for the Bills last year but got injured. Danico Autry, who played really good for Shane Bowen, but he's going to be 34. That obviously be an option. But A'Shawn is really a really good run defender, and he's only 29 years old.
I don't see them. Yeah, I planted my flag in the sand. I don't even see them bringing A'Shawn Robinson back, and that means that I don't know if they're going to be paying somebody an interior defensive lineman an additional $5-6 million per year. I think that could be solely a draft decision. We're going to bank on Dexter Lawrence. We're going to bank on the guys that we got already on the roster, including Nacho, and I think that maybe that. I don't know. Again, besides maybe a vet minimum guy, I don't know if they're going to be adding somebody of significance with interior D-line. But my focus, it goes more towards the edge.
Danico Autry is the name to watch. Obviously, again, had double-digit sacks for Shane Bowen.
Good player, though.
Last season. So that's obviously the name to watch to see what they're interested in. But yeah, as we kind of close this out, they've got a lot of needs, right? Like we go through these positions and the Giants are a team that's filled with holes. So they need to get guard. And then at that point, I'm just trying to find the best players to plug holes. I'm not looking I don't want this team built through free agency, right? I want to keep Xavier McKinney. I want to pay a guard, and then I want to give out reasonable deals as this team looks to build for the future and hopefully start hitting more on draft picks and young players developing, because this is not a team that should be trying to fill every need with big money free agencies and backloading. If they give 4 contracts over $10 million per year, I feel like this is a bad free agency. I feel like it's a bad plan for the Giants.
Yeah, I agree. Part of me thinks that, they could backload a bunch of contracts, right? But part of me thinks that your little speech of, well, you have to build this within the draft and you have to use free agency to supplement, and they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice because they are dealing with a quarterback that they're paying $47.1 million to that they don't believe in. So now this is it. This is the offseason that we kind of, we gotta take our medicine. I think some are calling it. We're digging our grave. We dug our grave and now we're lying it. And that's exactly what we're going to have to do starting next week. Go get your guard. Go get Xavier McKinney back. Supplement some other spots. Supplement some other holes. And I think that may be it.
Yeah, that is my free agency plan. Go bring back Xavier McKinney, get a guard, and then, like you said, if you want to get Danielle Hunter, fine. I think he could be part of long-term success. But outside of that, in Bryce Huff, young pass rushers, I would splurge on, because those guys don't hit free agency, and I don't think that's going to be fixed in this draft for the Giants, and maybe not next year's too. We don't know how things are going to play out. So young good pass rushers don't really hit free agency. You have a free agency class that has 2, and Danielle Hunter's not young anymore, but he's still youngish. And then
that's why those guys are probably going to get paid to begin with. You know what I mean?
Well, I think this free agency is very hard to project because of the increased cap space. It's really hard to project what's going to happen with safety being flooded, running back being flooded, right? Just because a position is flooded doesn't mean the guys aren't going to get paid a lot. Last year, all the linebackers got paid pretty damn good last year. Defensive tackles have gotten paid and bunches. I'm not going to believe that McKinney's going to be at a discount because of all these 30-year-old safeties getting cut. Right? Maybe Cam Curl or Geno Stone are, but I don't think that's going to affect Xavier McKinney, who's the best young safety on the market.
Right. So when's the next time we're going to chat?
after the next time the Giants sign somebody, whether that's bringing back McKinney or whoever. Hopefully that is on, hopefully they make a signing on Monday because I don't like to wait too long. But we will do it. So free agency, I do film breakdowns of every player the Giants signed, trying to get those out as quickly as possible. Our social media, we will be covering, giving you clips and thoughts on all those guys. So it's an important week to follow along with Talking Giants. So we'll be burning the midnight oil. We appreciate you guys. We will see you next week. Enjoy free agency. Until then, let's go Big Blue.